morning. Welcome in. This is the House of L podcast. I'm the L of House of L. I'm Lawrence Holmes. Thanks everyone who is listening on Spotify or on Apple. Appreciate it. I might change my mind about the coaching podcast and make them available to everyone. I was thinking about it and like, why wouldn't I? But we'll get to that in a little bit. I mean, this technically does have something to do with the Bears coaching search. But I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this is a part of this that I think is going to kind of quickly go away. So I wanted to speak on it because of the story arc of what's happened with Thomas Brown. A couple of things I want to say off rip. I have been thoroughly impressed with Thomas Brown, the coach. I don't mean like the head coach of the Bears because they were still 1-4 under him and had some embarrassing losses under him. What he was asked to do, I think, is incredibly impressive that he was able to navigate this in a fairly positive and straightforward way. Making that jump from being pass game coordinator. By the way, I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but I hit up a few friends of mine who work in the industry. And I asked them a little bit about like that job. And the consensus that I've gotten is that that job is really just kind of a way to hold on to a coach that you think has potential. And maybe you're not ready to move them up to offensive coordinator, but you see the future and you see where they might end up being a star. Like that seems to be a way around this as you keep kind of stacking and adding to the coaches to your staff. But Thomas Brown having to go from passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator to then go from offensive coordinator to head coach within a couple of weeks is crazy. And I don't know if we really did stop and talk about that part. I think there was immediately a lot of joy in Eberflus being fired, and that the reaction to that left a lot of people just like, oh, well, I'm so happy that Eberflus is out here. We didn't kind of think of the ramifications of it. Now, I said at the time that I would have preferred someone else be head coach. And the reason why, that John Hoke was the choice. Now, I know John from when I covered the Bears. I also think that his position as a secondary coach wasn't nearly as necessary. Like the change wouldn't have been earth-shattering the way that it seemed to be from moving Thomas from offensive coordinator to head coach. In retrospect, I feel like I was right. That the offense was stagnant. Being a head coach is hard. Like all the things that you have to do on a daily basis, all of the things that you have to take into account that takes you away from whatever your primary function with the football team is. It's difficult. And it was my concern that there would be some backwards movement with Caleb. And I think we saw that. Now, the beautiful thing is on Sunday, he did what was necessary. Like it wasn't great, but he did what was necessary. He made the plays, and they were finally able to kind of close the door on games because of him putting the team in a position to win. A lot of different things have to go into that. Everything then has to work. All of those factors have to work, but they did it, and they deserve credit for it. They deserve a send them a cupcake from Sweet Mandy B's or something. And now we can kind of get ready for the next thing. But specifically for Thomas Brown, I've been thinking about whether or not this experience was actually helpful to him. in his career. And I don't know how to feel about that. You can let me know, like in the comments, how you feel about it. On the one hand, you say, well, any experience is a good experience. And I know that feels kind of pithy to me to say. I don't know if, I guess the Green Bay win helps, but I don't know if you're someone who's looking for an offensive coordinator, that Thomas Brown did enough in the time that he was coordinator to mitigate what happened to the offense when he was head coach. You see what I'm saying? Like, if he would have just stayed offensive coordinator, would his stock be higher? Would he have been more impressive? Now, the flip side to that argument is, well, Lawrence, he got a chance to be a head coach. You're right. He got a chance to be a head coach, but I'm not convinced that it did for him what we were hoping it would do for him, or what he was hoping that it would do for him. Now, you got to take the job. If they offer you an opportunity, especially minority candidate, an opportunity to take that job, you got to take it. It's something great to put on your resume, ideally. But then when people start looking at what the results were and looking at what the team was and how you still had a lot of the same problems as Matt Eberflus did when he was in charge, and things got worse in that awful Monday night performance where your offense only scores 3 points. Would he have been better served by staying in that role and maybe things being better? Maybe with all the time, and look, I am big on my time. Like, I work a lot. And so there are days when you're like, oh, I'm doing way too much today. And because I'm doing this, I'm not doing this. It doesn't happen often, but I'm just someone that's in charge of a media company that has one person, or I guess actually two. Shout out to my producer, Price Tag. So I have a very small company. And there's that. And then there's the radio show. And for a while, there was the radio show and television show, but that's another story for another podcast. Actually, I did multiple pods on that. You can just go back and look. But if you're trying to go from just really taking a hold of an offense, and now you have to be responsible for what's going on in the defensive room, what's going on in the special teams room, personality conflicts, you're the final word on a lot of things. I think it can take you away from what it is that you're doing. And remember that he took a jump. And I get that he did that job kind of in Charlotte last year. I get that. All I'm saying is that throughout this experience, I hope that it served Thomas Brown the way that he wanted. I don't think that outside of the Bears, he's going to get a lot of legitimate head coaching interviews. And the Bears should absolutely, like, he did their dirty work. Like, he took over a mess. And because of that, you damn right he should get an interview. He should go in there. He should try and tell them the things that he felt like he did correctly. That part, I will say, that is experience to me that matters. Learning how to interview for a head coaching position it's a whole thing. And when organizations do it right, it takes hours and maybe a couple of days to really get into it. And you better have everything buttoned up. Who's your staff? Who are the people that already work here that you want to continue to have on your staff? Medical stuff. How do you feel about this? You got to be ready. You got to come with binders, a PowerPoint, like all of that stuff if you're going to be a head coach. at any level outside of high school. And even in high school, you better have some plans. Who's the first call you're going to make? What's your philosophy on traits versus game film? Stuff like that. So they owe him. Now, I know he got a raise, he got a bump up each time he got promoted. They owe him the opportunity to interview. I don't think they're going to hire him, and I don't think they should hire Thomas Brown. But I would love to have a beer with him and be like, do you really think that helped your career being the interim head coach? Or would you have been better served by being offensive coordinator and the offense looking right? I wonder what he would say. I wish him a lot of luck. He handled this with a lot of class. I think that I understand why they wanted to promote him. Like every time you hear him talk, and Chris Beatty, the offensive coordinator, I was impressed by him too, in how honest they were in their assessment. Now, maybe when you are the interim and you know that you can be a little bit more honest in what it is you're seeing. And I hope that's what we had here, was that. But I wish him a lot of luck. That was we all have been at some point in our lives put in a position where the bosses ask you to do something and it's not a perfect fit, but you do it anyway, or you're asked to do extra. But if you have a good relationship with your boss and you see this as an opportunity, you're like, all right, I'm going to make the most out of it. I heard someone, maybe it was Mel Robbins, she was talking about this, like the idea of whatever decisions that you make, like make it right. That even if it's wrong, you can work towards making it right. And when it's just kind of you versus you, yes, that's more easily said than done. When it's you in charge of a group of 80 people and their opponents that are actively trying to attack you, it's made a little bit more difficult. But I get what she's saying on that. And I hope that the experience was great for him. And I hope that he continues to rise as a offensive coach in this league. But they were 1-4 and things got worse. But my hat's off, although I'm keeping it on. My hat's off to Thomas Brown for the job that he did, him being willing to take that job and take on that responsibility. He deserves an interview. He should get interviewed. Later on this week, we're going to talk about more of the interviews. All right? I appreciate your support. Thanks to Remy Martin for supporting throughout this football season. And we'll see if that relationship continues with the coaching search. You all have a wonderful, wonderful day, no matter when it is that you're checking this out. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple, get your ass over to the YouTube. Become a subscriber. It doesn't cost anything. I'm not putting anything behind the paywall. It's just that you get video and audio. And you get to see my awesome Chicago Vice poster, or at least the top half of it. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.